About a month ago, my spirit team gave me an assignment of they wanted me to talk on camera and very vulnerably share what it was like for me when I went viral. If you recall, we're a little over a year ago now of when the contest happened and the roller coaster ride that happened with it. And somehow I put two and two together about a lot of different things, and I put it into a video, and it really hit a nerve with a lot of people. You know, the next thing I knew, I went from having 500 people on TikTok thinking, oh my God, that video, if I could, if it got 250 to 300 views, I would have been happy with that. And it ended up at about 300,000 views, which, freaked me out. I mean, it was like, yes, that was good. It happened. And, it was a crazy ride after that. But it was about a month ago that my spirit team came to me and they're like, and this is in the midst of one of my days where I was going to produce video. I had my checklist. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do for folks. And the spirit team was like, wipe that off the map. Those are not important for right now. This is important. We want you to get in front of the camera and do a vulnerable tell-all behind the scenes of what it was like for you when you went viral a year ago. And I was like, whoa, and at the time that they gave me this assignment, I was just assuming that this was going to be kind of an expose, vulnerable tell-all to all of you, which, made me really uncomfortable. And so I was like, spirit team, so you want me to do a vulnerable tell-all behind the scenes of what I experienced when I went viral a year ago? And they're like, yep. And so I'm like, okay. So I did. I stood myself up in front of a camera and I talked for a good 45 minutes, 50 minutes and let her rip. My thought was like, whatever I don't want to include, I could just edit out because that's what I do anyway. I tend to let it rip, and the things that are inappropriate, they don't make the cut, right? So that's what I did. And I gave myself permission to just let the whole thing roll. And then I got done with it, quite a few emotional roller coasters later, and some tears and laughter and cussing and all that good stuff went into it. And I got done with it 45 to 55 minutes later, and I was just spent. And it was different. It was different than a regular video recording for all of you. And I got done, and I kind of tuned in with my spirit team, and I was like, am I going to be sharing this with my crowd? And they're like, nope, that was all for you, honey. And when I understood that, when I understood what I had finally gave myself permission to voice, and I had let myself do that all in one spot, and then afterwards, when I went outside to decompress, to sit down and decompress, and I literally felt the heavens and the earth just shift through me. And what you've got to understand, and I've made mention of it here and there, but I don't really bring that forward. It's like, at this point in my journey, I have been stripped, literally stripped of having any personal insider circle people that I can talk with. And that's been going on for a while now, month after month, and now year after year. That is somewhat hard for me to admit, and it's not necessarily something that I want to publicly reveal because, part of it is I know it's part of my spiritual journey right now. I know it's not going to last forever. And also, and this is part of the story about why I'm on camera right now to tell the story that I'm going to tell, is that the handful of people that I have revealed that to over this past year, the response to me has been nominal. A level of, I wouldn't say there's complete lack of empathy, but the response has been neutral. The people that I have told, that's been kind of like, okay. And then they just keep talking. And there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, did you hear me? Did you hear what I had to say? And I think that's why my spirit team was like, Dana, you've got to have a way to be able to talk about this, even if you don't have people to talk to right now. And so coming up on that year anniversary from going from nearly complete obscurity in social media to like an overwhelming wave of people going like, oh my God, who are you? Where have you been? And I've been like, I've been here for the last 2.5 years, just cranking it out every day and nobody's paying any attention. So my spirit team granted me permission to tell my story privately and anonymously, so I could have that telling. And when I got done and when I sat down and really allowed myself to relax and let go and surrender after that event, because it really did feel like an event to be able to say anything I wanted to say and say it in the way that I wanted to say it and just let it rip. When I got done with all of that, like my body literally shifted. And as I'm sitting there feeling my body shift and I'm weepy and like, oh my God, I really don't have anybody to talk with. And I've just learned how to deal with that and keep going. And and it's not been for the lack of trying. Like I have tried. It's like for whatever reason in my spiritual journey right now, people are just bouncing off of the bubble and I am not being allowed to have contact. And I really do believe it has to do with my own spiritual growth and development until I get to a certain point. And then the spirit team's going to let the gates open again and I'll be able to have some meaningful inner contact with people again. But it's not been easy. It's not been easy. It's been rather scary. And in the process, I mean, you guys have seen how much support I have provided for the spiritual community. And I have not been granted that kind of emotional support in my own life. And I think that's a large reason why my battery has been drained through the years. I've arrived at a point of like, oh my God, the insight, the insight, the resiliency, like everything that I provide in the videos that I do for free, like that has not been granted to me in my own life. And so when Spirit Team said, you need to tell your story and tell it on camera, I had a very visceral shift after I did that. And as that's happening, as I'm sitting outside and as I'm really experiencing this somatic shift in my body of the months and months and months and months I have gone without being able to talk with another soul about the very, severe, like really great things and really awful things and very intense things that I have been going through, as I'm in that space of like, oh my God, I had a letting, even though it wasn't, I didn't get to share it with another human being, at least I did it. And I can feel the response through my body after that. That was significant. And as I'm sitting there and having that happen, reverb happen through my body, my spirit team said to me, they said, you do realize what you're doing right now is you are allowing yourself to finally leave the spiritual community. And I was just, I was like, are you kidding me? Because that is something I've never considered, leaving the spiritual community. And so when Spirit Team said that to me and I went, leaving, saying goodbye to the spiritual community? Are you kidding me? 25 years? Like, hell no. Like, I have my differences with the spiritual community. And then there was this feeling from spirit world of like, it was a sensation of like, well, not leave, but begin to change the meaning of your relationship with your spirit, begin to change the meaning of your relationship with spiritual community at this point, because, and Spirit World was pretty frank in the fact of like, Dana, you are serving and have served and served the spiritual community incredibly well, and you're not being provided that same reciprocal support. And I'm like, true, that is true. And then there was this feeling coming through of like, I think probably the best phrase to describe it that we would know it as would be deconstructing out of the spiritual community. And as I began to arrive into that sensation of like deconstructing out of the spiritual community, and I was like, kind of been doing that anyway for quite a few years. And it began over 10 years ago when I had my spiritual financial intervention and started talking about body-based money relationship in the spiritual community, and had, a very push-pull reaction from my community. Like, that was the point where I realized, oh, all things are not equal here, and there's a lot of different stuff going on. And I was already kind of aware of that anyway. But when I really came present with body-based money relationship in the spiritual community and the friction that it caused, that's where I really experienced my first fracturing with the spiritual community. And it wasn't long after that the whole QAnon thing happened in the spiritual community in relationship with Donald Trump. And that was an even further fracturing of the spiritual community, because there were those of us that were like, how can you be aligned with this guy and still call yourself spiritual? It was like, what, are you half awake? And I still have that thing. I still, like, the thought of, me thinking about a Republican who is psychic that considers himself spiritual and is in the dogma of MAGA and Donald Trump and the party. I just I'm seriously like, how does that work? To me, that's like soul bungee. I do not get it. I do not get it. It's also akin to me of like, a woman who is a true blue feminist that works for Fox News. I don't get that either. I really don't get that. So, those conundrums. And so my spirit team, after I've had this very real life exercise of tell your story, tell your very vulnerable story, and then, oh, you're not going to share it. That was for you. And then I go through this body shift. In the process of it, I feel like this very strong tangential feeling of like, oh, I'm really kind of truly leaving the spiritual community at this point in a way I've never allowed myself to do before, in a sense of deconstruction. And wow, I don't know what that's going to look like in my life, because of like, good God, if I don't have family anymore, and if the friends have all fallen away, and, and I'm saying bye-bye to the spiritual community, I literally had that moment of like, oh, what the fuck am I here for? What the fuck am I here for? And so ever since I did that, probably about a month ago, I've really felt like I've been in free float. I've really felt like I've been in free float. And I have allowed myself to no longer toe the line. Like, the videos that I do at this point, I really want to do them. And if I don't want to do a video, because like in the past, I would do a video because I knew my audience would want to hear that information, whether that was aligned with me or not. And I did that for quite some time. And, maybe partial alignment, or some of it I enjoyed, or some of it was spot on. But like, the further I got and the more that I went, I began to realize, oh, like, what I am serving here is not in alignment with who I am and what they want. Like, there was this whole disconnect that was happening. And then the spirit world had me do that video. And ever since then, I've been kind of in free float for like, what am I really doing? Oh my, like the questioning of like, what am I really doing? Why am I really here? Like, that hasn't slowed down any. It almost kind of got ramped up to a whole other level. And so I've been putting out like these script flip videos, or these very deeply guided story videos, like some of the story videos that I've done lately. I have gone all in on them. I have loved them. People are really getting some good stuff out of it. And I feel like those, I'm really landing in that heart-aligned place that works for me, works for audience, and I'm like, I think I'm landing it. Well, as all this is going on, ever since I was able to do my telling, I've kind of had this adjacent personality of myself, kind of becoming forward more and more, and I would call her like the cranky Gen X psychic, this is me who has been in this for 25 years. And not only have I seen a lot of stuff, I've seen a lot of bullshit. And I've lived through a lot of bullshit in the spiritual community. And I've been required to do what we all do, like toe the line. It's that thing of whatever happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. And so there's this thing in the spiritual community of whatever happens in the spiritual community stays in the spiritual community. And there's this thing of You don't talk shit in the spiritual community because that's bad form. And there's a problem with that because it means that we can't be honest. We can't be transparent. We can't be honest, and we can't actually speak truth about some of the bullshit dynamics that happen in the spiritual community. And because of this, then people end up getting gaslit. People end up getting traumatized. People end up getting hurt. People end up getting sugar-coated, light and loved into oblivion until they can't figure out who they are. They get masked to death. And that's the part of the spiritual community, especially in the digital online community, that I have felt myself drowning in. And there have been, and like as I have come out with more of my true blue colors, there are those of you who come along for the ride with me and love it. They're like, thank God, breath of fresh air, love this. And then there's been nastiness. There's been poisoning of the well for me. There has been backlash, back talk that I don't say any, of course, I don't say anything about. I don't bring that forward, but it's definitely been there, and that has been so hard because I don't have anybody to talk with about it. So some of the hardest things that have happened online for me in the spiritual community, I have no sounding board. I have no one to talk to, and I've got to come to the camera then in good faith. Like, it's that whole Obama thing of like, they go low, you go high. Like, I've tried to do that. Maybe sometimes in the comment section, I've duked it out a little bit too much. Probably shouldn't have done that. But I have definitely felt like I've at least needed to have some voice with some boundaries and with some of the stuff that has happened in the comment section. And so now we arrive here today at the anniversary mark, like the full-on anniversary mark. We've got like a whole echelon or grade level or whatever you want to call it of new 4Amers who woke up a year ago, and all of you have beautifully done the ride for about a year now. And so like all of this is coming to mark here at this point in the year, and I find it very interesting that this is where my spirit team is bringing me up by my short hairs. And as we hit the anniversary mark, I've had this very eerie and ominous feeling within my body of like, something's afoot for me, something's changing, and especially after spirit team was like, you're saying goodbye to the spiritual community. And I was like, wait, what do we really mean about that? And it turns out it's like, it's time to really publicly deconstruct. And I want to be really clear. I'm not leaving spirituality. I'm deconstructing out of the spiritual community. Two totally different things. So like, hang up my spirituality? Hell no. I will be tried and true and through blue on this for the rest of my life. But as far as towing the line, the old traditional spiritual line in the spiritual community, I think that's what I'm being called to deconstruct out of. And that feels both refreshing to me and terrifying to me. But at the same time, as I have that awakening with it, yeah, I can't shut that door anymore. I can't shut that door anymore because I'm ready. I am so ready. I am so ready to be able to share some of my own personal bullshit spiritual story experiences to help educate people in the spiritual community and also help raise the bar. Because for what I can see are well-intentioned people, like the spiritual community is filled with all kinds of really good, well-intentioned people. Standards, and because we have, and because we've got a middle of the road doctrine, it leaves a lot to be desired as far as how people get treated in the spiritual community from an emotionally intelligent perspective. And so this is my video here today to just kind of create a demarcation. So my future videos just kind of don't come out of nowhere. And, and the other thing that I will say is, like, as I move forward with this and begin to reveal the experiences I have gone through, this is not going to be me standing in the middle of the field pointing fingers at the spiritual community. It's going to be more like, this was an experience I went through. This part was good. This part was bullshit. This is where we need to do better. That's what I'm going to be doing. And quite frankly, I think we need some of that right now, especially with all the new people who have come on who are like, how is this all working? What does this look like? And there's pretty much been a free-for-all for about a year. And I think the feathers have all kind of calmed down. And the people who are now going to stick along for the ride, and, it is a commitment, the people who are going to stick along for the ride, I think this is a really good wake-up call for veterans to check our practices. And then also the new people in the street, the people who are like first 1 to 5 years into their spirituality, this is a really good time to go, what's our fundamental framework in the spiritual community and how are we practicing that? And that's why I'm going to begin to speak up more. And I mean, quite frankly, aren't we in the time of the Great Awakening and the Great Restructuring? And that's also going to have to come home to roost within the spiritual community as well. There's really great things that happen in the spiritual community, and there's really great people in the spiritual community. And I'm just saying there's a lot of bullshit too. And I'm tired of sweeping the bullshit under the rug and then acting like it's not there, because that is what we call toxicity and dysfunction, and it creates damage for people within the community. And I'm just simply not willing to just continue to go along for the ride and gaslight it and mask it and act like it's not there and nothing can be done about it. So if you stick with me, welcome to the next leg of my journey. I can't wait to share some of these spiritual experiences that I've gone through, and I will be sharing them in good taste. I'll share them in good taste, but I'm also going to be sharing them vulnerably and peeling the layers back and really taking a good look at what are the practices that we've got going on. And so welcome to the part of my journey that is about the spiritual community deconstruction. Here we go.